empty the chamber on them. And how do you do that? First 6 seconds, point A to point B, everything you got. Everything you got. Turn that shit up. Let's go.
Welcome to the Scoop World Order Bank and Barton edition. This is always my favorite little recruiting recap from the weekend. We have a monster weekend on tap with Wisconsin coming to town. It is a night game, so the juices will be flowing and the recruits will be flying into town. We have all the latest with Bill the Bank Greene. I'm really excited about this one, and some big names that could pop for the Buckeyes. And Larry Johnson. With Larry Johnson, the hits keep on coming. I think we're going to have some really good news coming soon. But before we get to that, as always, thank you guys. We appreciate your support on the channel. Like this content, subscribe to the channel, comment. Who do we need to wrap up this recruiting class? Is it Keon Keeley? Is it Mateo Uongalele? There are some monsters coming in this weekend. There is one big official visit coming in this weekend, but I can always show it better than I can tell it, and I'm going to show you the number one recruiting guy in the entire world, my man, Bill the Bank Greene. Bank, how are you today?
Good, man. Doing real good.
Good, man. So big recruiting weekend. There's been some big news popping with Keon Keeley. He looks like he's trending our way. Mateo, talk a little bit about the potential defensive end class that we could be putting together for Larry Johnson. I think that some of these guys are checking out that depth chart. They noticed that, in all likelihood, Jack Sawyer and JT could be jumping to the NFL after next year, and then they're free and clear to take over. So it's really intriguing to Mateo, and I'm sure it's intriguing to Keon. Talk a little bit about where we are with those two and their recruitment, and how Ohio State looks right now.
Yeah, I think they're looking really good for Keon Keeley. There was some optimism on my end. I've got an Ohio State, someone fairly connected to Ohio State, keeps telling me that, it looks good for Keon Keeley. And, after the official visit, everybody thought the official visit was great, but, it kind of seemed like Bama might be taking hold there. They've got their officials still coming up here in a couple of weeks. But now with the news that he's coming back for the Wisconsin game, my OSU guy is really pumped, thinking that this thing has turned toward Ohio State. And the good thing is my Florida guys that who had told me all along it was going to be Bama, now they're wavering a little bit. So when they start wavering, I think it looks really good for Ohio State getting him back for this visit. In a perfect world, you would love to have him come out of this visit and cancel that trip to Bama. That would be perfect. I don't expect it to happen, but they're going to push for that. Ohio State's going to push for the commitment. We love you here. You love it here. Let's get this done now. There's no reason to go on a Bama trip. I've also heard from the Florida guys that Florida's window dressing in this. They're out. It's Ohio State or Bama here. So, getting him back from Wisconsin is just gigantic, I think, and everything seems to be trending OSU's way. From what I can see, the people I trust seem to think it's Ohio State can land this one.
Yeah, I mean, this could be just one of those absolutely incredible defensive end classes. Larry Johnson he's the guy that I hear over and over again from parents and players that he's the kind of guy that I want to send my kid to or I want to play for. He's a different animal, man, because he's the guy these kids play really hard for. They get really coached up. He doesn't swear. Parents love that. And you look at his resume of NFL draft picks, Courtney Brown, number 1 overall pick. I go back, 30 years, and there's guys that you're just like, wow, he coached that guy, Tom Bahali, I played against, and his guys always played hard. It was always miserable to play against Penn State's defensive lines when he was the D-line coach there. I did it every year. And I've always had more respect for Larry than probably any position coach in the country. And I think that Penn State messed up not making him the head coach because I think he would have been a monster as a recruiter. And, as you know, and Nick Saban knows, if you get, the Jimmies and Joes outweigh the X's and the O's dramatically in college football. So we're going to have the normal kind of laundry list of kids, the committed kids, Mark Fletcher, Brandon Ennis, Tate, Bryson Rogers, Luke Montgomery, Padilla. We're going to have all those guys in town. But we have one uncommitted, really, really good defensive tackle. Tell us a little bit about Kaden Mcdonald. He is the only official visitor. And for those of you that don't know, an official means Ohio State. You get 5 total. You can only take 1 to a school, to Ohio State. You can't take 5 to one school. But that means that they're paying for the flight. They're paying for the hotel. The meals are top-notch Hyde Park 5-star meals. You get kind of the showcase of everything. Talk to me a little bit about Kaden Mcdonald. I know that it is an interesting thing. I know that we need defensive tackles. You never can have enough defensive tackles like offensive tackles. Tell me a little bit about Kaden Mcdonald and where we stand with him.
Yeah, I think a 6'3", 310-pound kid. I would compare him to Tyleik Williams. I think he's that kind of player. He's from Georgia. It looks right now like Clemson is the leader in the clubhouse, but he's coming. And once he gets off that plane and takes that 48-hour visit, we keep saying over and over, and you hate to keep saying it, but it's true that Ohio State does the official visit process as well as anyone in the country, as well as Alabama, and I don't know who you mentioned after that, Georgia, as well as Clemson, and that's who you're battling right now. You're battling Clemson for this kid. So this is going to be another Larry Johnson special, like you mentioned, one of the best recruiters in America. And it's a program that does official visits so well. Like, I'm not counting him out, even though, it seems like Clemson is the favorite here, and that's who you got to beat. But I'm not saying Ohio State can't beat them for this kid. So this is Larry Johnson and Ryan Day and Mark Pantoni all doing their jobs, all working their magic. We'll see what happens. See what they'll take him. I mean, they need him.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and the thing about recruiting is things can change on a dime. I know people, they might not believe that. They might think that that's just hearsay, but I've seen it. I saw it with Dontre Wilson, a kid that we weren't in on. He was committed to Oregon. Then all of a sudden, Chip Kelly ends up going to the Philadelphia Eagles, and Dontre magically ends up here. That was a kid that was one of Urban's crown jewels. It was a guy that was supposed to be in that Percy Harvin role, and he was a 5-star, do everything type guy, and we weren't in on it. But it just, all it takes is for a coordinator to get hired away to be a head coach somewhere, or an offensive line coach like Sam Pittman getting a job. And then all of a sudden, all those guys are at risk, and I think that that's why it's important that you keep the pressure on, you keep recruiting these guys. Cause with Dabo, he's had a lot of turnover on his staff. He's lost Brett Venables to Oklahoma. He loses his offensive coordinator every few years to head coaching jobs. And, if that's the relationship, then I think you really have to look at it, because when a coordinator leaves, like Brent Venables leaves, he's going to take a couple guys. He's going to take that running backs coach and make him a coordinator. He's going to take that secondary coach and make him a coordinator. If those guys aren't getting promoted from within at Clemson, then they're going to go with Venables or wherever and move up the coaching ladder. So I think you got to keep the pressure on. That being said, we got some of the normal guys. You got Garrett Stover, who's going to be in the bag. We're going to move down to South Florida. We're going to talk about the massive matchup between Heritage and Chaminade. That was just chock full of Ohio State top drawer talent. Bank, I know that you really like where we're at with JoJo Trader, with JJ Smith, with Brandon Innes. That was as talented as a football field. Q Fletcher, the tailback. Talk to me a little bit about that. Brian Hartline made the trip down. He was scouting, because again, we're playing a 7:00 night game. We have private jets. We can do that kind of thing. Talk to me a little bit about what went down at that game. There was a new offer out of that game. It wasn't Malachi Toney, who I was projecting, but talk to me a little bit about that game and what it means for Ohio State going forward.
Yeah, stars all over the field. As you said, 2023s, 2024s, 2025s. And for Ohio State to take the private jet, send Hartline down there, Perry Iliano went with them for a reason. There's 2 DBs they were looking at closely. They did offer Damari Brown. Damari, from Heritage, he's really good. The thing about Damari is his dad played for Miami, and everybody seems to think that he's going to go to the U. You got to get Damari Brown up on an official visit. Love him up, bring the dad up, and see where you go there. Damari's really good. I think he's way underranked. He's got Alabama, Georgia. He's got all those dudes after him, so he's good. Now, this is a late offer. Is it too late? I don't know. We're going to find out. But they did offer Damari Brown. Edwin Joseph was also in this game. He's another guy they're looking at closely. That DB room there's room to add more. They wanted Caleb Downs, didn't get him. Dijon Johnson was committed. He decommitted. So there's room there. So we'll see what happens with Damari Brown. But before you take that too seriously, he's got to show up on campus. So
Yeah, and Bank, are you of the mindset, given the transfer portal and even with the new coaching staff, even new offensive line coach, do you just keep taking kids and assume that there are going to be kids transferring out and kids leaving the program because, again, they might not mesh with what Justin Fry wants to do or what Jim Knowles wants to do? Do you get a little more lenient with offering some guys that you think are still top drawer guys? They might not be that 5-star superstar, but they're like kind of on the fringe, and you might have held it in the past. Would you get more aggressive with offering some of these kids if you were Ohio State?
I don't like. I wouldn't bring anyone in that I didn't think could contribute to me winning a national title. That's just me.
Mhm.
And I get when you want 5 DBs and you got 3 committed and you're getting into October, November, maybe you take some flyers then, but I wouldn't start taking flyers yet.
Mhm.
There's still a lot of guys out there and guys that can possibly be flipped. So I'm not taking that, Ohio kid to fill the class out. I'm not taking him yet. We're not even to October yet. So,
Mhm.
and I don't think Damari Brown was that kind of offer at all. He's big time. So too early for that yet. Class fillers. There's still
Yeah.
top drawer kids out there that they're in on. So yeah, no, I would not do that yet. I guess in the end, you got a few spots left. Take some shots, then maybe some Ohio
Mhm.
kids, or but certainly not yet. I mean, way too soon for that.
Yeah, I'm completely with you. I think it's always surprising when you say that there's a kid somehow that's underranked that has a Georgia and an Alabama offer, because I can't imagine that guy's not a mid 4-star at the very minimum, given how those guys recruit.
Right,
Again,
right.
Urban Meyer, he always had a great kind of rule of thumb is if Alabama offers a defensive back, if Nick Saban offers it, then it was like an automatic offer. Put it in the mail. It's going to the kid. He was the same way with Bobby Petrino when he was at Arkansas with running backs, because Urban, he kind of would just have this rule of thumb for running backs, because there was a time when at Arkansas when they and this is before Petrino when they had Felix Jones and McFadden, but there's certain guys he would really respect their evaluations to the point where it was kind of like they did the homework for you, and you could just maybe do a quick little fact background check to make sure that he's not some terrible kid off the field. But if
Yeah,
Saban went on a DB, Urban was saying, "Put it in the mail, we're going," because like we might not have a chance at him, but like he just respected his evals that well. So I'm gonna flip us into the film room real quick, just because we got to get a little bit of Keon Keeley in our lives, because this kid is a really special dude. Keon, as you can tell when you look at this, he's the guy. If you got to pick out one guy that looks like he's an Alabama guy, it's that guy.
you know,
He's a freaky kid, and you can tell with his movement skills that he's a special player. Bank, go
shut the
ahead, Bank.
film off. Shut the film
Yeah,
off.
I know. I
Okay,
know.
we're good. We're good.
Um, yeah, I mean, you see how graceful he is, and I mean, he's a 6'5" kid. He's a big kid. It's funny, they kind of line him up as like a nickel here, like he's over the slot. And I'm like, yeah, like no one's gonna notice this big monster over the slot. Like that guy ain't dropping into coverage. He's not playing man. That guy's coming off the edge. Bank, who does he remind you of when you watch his film? And again, it could be an NFL guy, a college guy, an Ohio State guy. Who does Keanu remind you of?
Maybe Jack Sawyer.
I was
Just
gonna say
big,
that.
tall, long. I mean, couldn't you see this guy playing tight end in their offense?
Oh
Couldn't you
God,
see
yeah.
him? Couldn't you see him move the quarterback if the quarterbacks got hurt like they did with Jack?
Oh
I mean,
yeah.
this is an amazing looking athlete. I want that to play hoops for me. See those DNs. When I look at a DN, I always want to envision that guy playing hoops and getting
Yep.
15, 20 points a game and 20. Not a guy gets 5 fouls and kills somebody. I'm talking about a legit hoops player. Couldn't you see this
Yeah.
guy averaging 15 and 15 down in Florida?
Oh God. I had an NFL scout who I'm still super, super tight with tell me one of the favorite things he'd like to do is if he just happened to run into, a defensive end and they just happened to be at like the Woody Hayes or somewhere, he'd ask him to dunk a basketball and see how it looked. And he'd flip the ball to a kid like this, and this kid's doing a 360 windmill. He's not
For
going
sure.
like if Vernon Golson did it, it would be like a one arm, like there
Yeah.
would be no fluidity. There would be no, because I think that of all the things in sports that translate well, I think that being a really exceptional one-on-one basketball player and being a pass rusher, because it's the same movements. It's spin moves. It's little head shakes. It's all those little things add up. And if you can do that well on a basketball court, I always feel like you can be a good pass rusher. And I agree with you completely on Jack Sawyer because that was
Yeah,
the first guy I thought of. And, if something happens at quarterback, say, hey, Keon, take the ball and look at
make
the
it
first guy. Yeah, look at the
Yeah.
first guy. And if he's not open, run.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
I mean,
but
see him as I can see him as a number 4 hitter on the baseball team, an Aaron Judge type. Aaron Judge did play football in high school, by the way, too. This
There you
guy's just, I mean, he's like I don't know what you call him. Like, he's like a 15-second tape guy. He watched 15 seconds, like, just turn it off.
yeah.
Move on
Yeah,
to the next. This guy's in.
Yeah, you watch him come off the ball one time, and what's funny is like a much, much lesser version of this kid.
Did you see the spin move there? I don't know if you saw that one. If you could back it up, the last play. Yeah, watch this move.
Yeah, I mean that's terrifying.
Well, yeah, you can't do that when you're, that takes an athlete.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you're stiff as a board and you're just a bull rusher as a pass rusher. Yeah, you're not doing that. And then he'll come back. This kid will be sitting. And this is the good part about when a guy has a really good spin move, like JT Tuimoloau has a great spin move. This kid will be sitting waiting for the spin, and then he's back on his heels and he gets bull rushed. So then it's like, how do you combat the two of them? But yeah, this kid is an exceptional player. Like I said, I really hope we get him because you can never have enough pass rushers. I think he's a guy that could play 3 technique and nickel and pass rush. If you had, a him and a Jack and JT, and he's a guy that could find a role early because he's a big kid. He's shifty.
Yeah.
Again, just powerful against the run. Like, look at that. I mean, they're double teaming. I mean, he pancakes the tight end here. And it's like you just don't. That's a kid. That's a 17, 18-year-old kid too in Florida down in Tampa, and just a different cat. Who do you like better? And this might be really hard between him and Mateo.
Oh, that is hard. Wow.
It's like,
yeah. I would have those twos, 1 and 1A, and Damon Wilson is really good, but I don't know if he's as long as this guy. Damon would be a little bit below, just an inch below, but yeah, him and Mateo, my gosh, I don't know how you set. It's like JTT and Jack. You want them both. I mean,
they're like clones. Like, I mean, when me and you did our breakdown a couple weeks ago, and you saw Mateo catch that fade route down in Texas, and you're just like, yeah, that's 6'5", 270 running like that, and you're just like, you just don't know how.
Yeah, I love Keon Keeley. I just think he's just so good, so fluid, so athletic.
Yeah, and he's a tough kid. There's great effort there running down the quarterback. And again, a lot of times when you see these plays against these quarterbacks, I mean, this quarterback probably weighs $175, fast, and you see him get the ball, and Keon's engaged here, and he comes off this like a cat and just runs him down, hawks him. It saves. It doesn't save a touchdown, but I mean, if 2 doesn't
effort,
if 2 doesn't make this play, that might be a touchdown. But you always like to see the effort these kids play with. And again, I love when you're talking about he's probably the cleanup hitter on the baseball team, and he's the starting power forward on the basketball team. He's averaging 20 and 20 again in high school. And I've always I played with a kid named Marcel Frost, who's from Lyndhurst Brush, and he's nowhere near the talent of this kid or Mateo, but he was a 3-star kid, a late offer kid, but he was that kind of athlete. Him and Roy Hall played basketball together at Brush, and he was a 20 and 15 guy, and we would play softball with Ohio State. He hit the ball out of the, on top of the roof of the Woody Hayes, and he wasn't near the athlete these guys were, but you notice like when a kid's good at multiple sports and he's got that athleticism, it's something that's never a bad thing, I don't think.
Yeah.
But I like it. If we get a grade, if we get him and Mateo,
wow,
where does that rank in it's obviously JT and Jack is so fresh, but
JT, that's what it is.
That's that's a 10-star defensive end haul, and it's 2 guys that could play right away as freshmen like JT and Jack did.
Same thing.
Yeah. But this is good stuff, man. So we got give me a quick thought on the Toledo game going into Wisconsin, and we'll wrap this thing up. Obviously Toledo, outmanned. I thought that, and I love their staff. I think those guys do a really good job. They're always super competitive.
I thought Jason Candle, I mean, there was nothing he could do
Yeah.
defensively. I mean, there's nothing you could do. I mean, you have
Yeah.
2-star kids covering 5-star kids, and it
Mhm.
can't be done. Especially, maybe one you can bracket one. You can't bracket them all.
Yeah.
So when Ohio State spreads you out, you're just dead. But I thought offensively, I thought Jason did some things to Jim Knowles. I mean, I really did. I was
Mhm.
impressed. And again, the talent level is not even, there's not one guy on the Toledo roster Ohio State wants, and there's not one guy on the Ohio State roster that Jason Candle won't take today. But
Mhm.
schematically, they did some things offensively with their QB that I think is going to be in the film room for some other schools going forward. I was really impressed with what Jason did. And it's hard,
Mhm.
77-21 is what it is. You got demolished. But they did do some things that I liked offensively that I think gave Jim Knowles some things to work on, and it gave some other schools some things to look at. There were some holes there
Mhm.
that they attacked.
Yeah, and they scored more than Notre Dame did, and
Yeah,
that's with
absolutely.
little old Toledo, and I'll tell you
They
what,
ran the ball. They ran the ball better than I thought they should have been able to. With that Penny Boone, that big power, he didn't start. They
yeah,
went to him later, and it was like, holy crap, he's 240 pounds. I remember Penny when he was recruited. Run that guy. And they did, and they had some, not a lot, but they had some success power running right at Ohio State. Not getting tricky, not getting cute like they did with the QB. The Q got cute, man, and he hurt him, but that power back ran right at him. So I think there are some things there, and I think Jim Knowles had to have liked to see some things like that. Now he knows what to work on. He knows what other schools are going to try to do to him. Wisconsin's going to come right at you with Braylon Allen this
oh,
week. I promise you that. They're going to use the
oh
Marcus
yeah,
Freeman game plan. Wisconsin will love to be in a 14-10 game in the fourth quarter. They sign up for that right now and just start the clock with 8 minutes to go. Down 14-10, let's play. So
oh god,
yeah, you're
yeah,
going to get Penny Boone again this week with a better player in Braylon Allen and a better offensive line. So they're coming at you.
uh,
You better be able to stand up and stop that run.
yeah, and I'll tell you what, Wisconsin, there isn't a program in this entire country that has changed less than Wisconsin has in the last 30 years because they run
They
the
do it.
same stuff. I watched, yeah, they do what they do, and Barry Alvarez has been the AD there, and whoever that head coach is going to do what Barry Alvarez does, and it is two tight ends, a fullback, zone, power, counter. I watched about half the game against New Mexico before I couldn't stand it anymore. But I mean, they run the
It was
same stuff. It is like it is so hard to stop because when the guys are 330 pounds and they're 6'7", and they always have like a Jonathan Taylor or a star tailback, and then big
this guy,
dudes.
this
Oh,
Braylon Allen, special.
oh yeah,
He's as good as Trey Henderson in my opinion. He's same class, true freshman from last year,
yeah,
sophomores now. Braylon Allen can play. I mean, he's a dude. And,
oh
and
yeah.
Ryan Day made changes defensively based on that Michigan loss. Well, you're going to get a
Hmm.
repeat of that game this week. And if
Oh
Ohio
yeah.
State can stand up and smother the run and force Graham Mertz to beat him throwing the ball, I don't think Wisconsin can do that. But if they can run the ball, shorten the game, do what Marcus Freeman did for a little over a half, and
Hmm.
then Marcus just doesn't have, they weren't able to seal the deal, but they gave Ohio State a game.
Oh yeah.
They got the lead in the second half. So you're going to get that again this week. That same exact game plan is coming. They're coming right at you. They're going to try to beat you up. They're going to try to out physical you. They want it to be a rock fight. They want the game over in about 2 hours and 20 minutes with them
Hmm.
in the lead or close. If Ohio State smokes them 21-3 in the first quarter, this you can start the ball. I mean, this
Yeah.
game over, bad, awful,
Yeah.
bad,
Yeah.
like a butt whipping. But if Wisconsin can get you to play their game, like Notre Dame did for a while, more than a half. If Wisconsin can do this and get this game into the fourth quarter, they're going to be thrilled. They're going to be
Yeah.
thrilled.
I couldn't agree more. I think that the book is out on how to beat Ryan Day, or at least attempt to beat him, and it's Michigan and Utah. It's you got to run the ball, you got to
Yeah.
control it for 45 minutes, and they get 15 minutes of time on attack. And the only way you stop C.J. Stroud and Jackson Smith and Jigba is they got to be watching the whole game. They got to be sitting on the sideline watching the game. Like that's the only way
Yeah.
you stop them. So you got to run the ball. You got to get those 3-yard, 4-yard, 2-yard, 19 play drives. And, like that's the key is keep those guys watching the game.
And defensively, Jim Leonard's so good, he's going to make you run the ball. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
He's probably going to rush 3, drop 8. Safeties will be double safeties, 25 yards off the ball, make you go 8 yards, 4 yards, 5, make you go 80 yards in 15 plays and hope you screw up before you get there. He is not going to want to give up one of a 75 or an 80-yard play. And he'll commit guys to the pass and give up. You want to run the ball? Go ahead. I'm happy with you running the ball. We'll take our chances that before you go 80 yards in 15 plays, you'll screw up by then. You'll have a holding call. You'll fumble. And that's the way they're going to play it. I mean, so I think that's how they play it. I don't think they blitz a lot. I don't think you're going to see 6-man fronts. I think they're going to be so many guys back. They don't want anything over the top of their heads. Keep everything in front. So we'll see.
I totally agree. Don't get beat deep, and it's like we've thrived and we lived off the deep shots, the shot plays the last couple years with Garrett Wilson and Olave, and
yeah,
I think that's the one thing that it takes you out of the balloon on the opposing sideline when you give up that 70-yard strike to whoever, to Marvin or to Emeka, and teams are taking that away. You're seeing more 2 high safeties than you've seen in the last 15 years. Because with Urban, we never saw 2 high safeties because we ran the quarterback. So you got to equate numbers and have a guy down in the box. But 2 high safeties means we got to run the ball and we got to get Trey and Mayan going, and we just got to take it. Because I mean, if these guys are going to play too high, we got to run the ball because we're gonna have a box that's a lot more appetizing to run into because you're not going to have a free hitter. Last thing, go ahead.
And again, I think Jim Leonard is fine with you running the ball because that 80-yard drive where you run it right down his throat, it's going to take 7 minutes. He's fine. And maybe he can force you into a field goal and play his butt off in the red zone once you get there. Hold him in the field goal. That's a win for Wisconsin. An 80-yard drive for Ohio State over 6 minutes that results in a field goal, good. 3-0. Let's go. Give us the ball. Because we're going to run it now. And that clock, we may be turning around going the other way here soon. And that quarter's over. He's fine. I think he's going to be fine with Ohio State running the ball and even having a little success running the ball. I don't think it bothers him. You just can't have that. You can't have an over the top for 45 yards or 60 yards. You can't have it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I always go back to, what you practice and what you go against is what you're good against. And what does Wisconsin do? They run the football. They get up in the morning and brush their teeth, and it's, we're running zone and we're running counter and power. So what is that defense really good at stopping, or what do they dedicate the most time to during fall camp and spring camp? It's stopping with their offense. When they go good on good, they're running counter and power and zone, and they're really good at against the run. This is how these teams are. If a team's a really good rushing team, generally on defense, their weakness is the passing game because they're just not used to seeing it. So, they're Jim Leonard's smart enough to say, hey, we got to put a lot of help back there and dedicate resources to stop these 3 great receivers. And our guys can just make it work against the run. And like you said, if it's a 7-play drive and they got to run it in, and that's great. That plays right into their hands, because the thing they don't want is they don't want that quick strike, because that takes all they get down 21-3, it's game over, because they're not built to come from behind. They're like Iowa, Michigan State, Navy, these heavy running teams. Once they get behind, it's like chopping their legs off. They're out of the race and it's over.
And it reminds me, there was a Super Bowl when, the Scott Norwood missed kick Super Bowl.
Yep.
The Giants beat Buffalo. And in that game, the game plan for the Giants, they committed so many people to the pass. They were forcing Thurman Thomas to run. And when Bill Belichick was the D coordinator for Parcells, they came up with that plan. They wanted Jim Kelly running that ball. And the Giants were like, when they presented the game plan to him, the players were like, no, we can't let Thurman Thomas. No, we're good. Let him run. They encouraged Marv Levy and Buffalo to run the ball, run the clock out, get that game going in terms of a rock fight. Instead of Jim Kelly, the K-gun back there with all those wideouts, they wanted that. And it worked. They got him in the red zone. Then they played like heck in the red zone, forced some field goals, and hung in that game the whole way. But the Giant players did not like that game plan when it was presented to them. where they were encouraging Buffalo to run the ball at them. So I think Jim Leonard pretty much does the same thing this week.
Yeah, I totally agree. And to wrap this, something I wanted to talk about is Jelani Thurman visited Auburn. I always think that that's a double-edged sword because Penn State showed up and they weren't. They were
Yeah.
expecting the Northern Lambs, and the Lions showed up, and the Nittany Lions showed up instead of the Northern Lambs. Talk a little bit about just a quick little 2 minutes on Penn State. Did that surprise you? I think anytime that a Big Ten team goes into the South and beats an Auburn team that, granted, I know it's a different year, but I mean, they almost beat Alabama last year. So a lot of those guys are back. And,
Well,
were you surprised by Penn State down there?
I wasn't surprised they won, even though I picked Auburn to win the game. I kind of went along with, remember we talked to Phil Steele early in the year. Phil Steele, I think, had Auburn as one of his surprise teams this year.
Oh, big time.
So it didn't surprise me that Penn State won the game. It surprised me how they dominated the game. I mean, they destroyed Auburn. Last year when they played up at Penn State won that game, but it was back and forth, close, right to the wire, 2 even teams. And I thought it would be the same thing last Saturday. Those teams were not even. Penn State demolished them. I haven't seen the film on that. I want to take some time this week and watch that just to see. That Penn State O-line has to be better. When I looked at the stats, I didn't see it, and I am going to see it. I'm going to take some time and watch that this week. But that Penn State, if that O-line is better, dramatically better than what they were last year, this is the team to watch. Penn State's going to be, but I want to see them first for myself. I didn't see it.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah, it's going to be this is one of those ones where I say, thank God it is not a whiteout. It's not a night game. This is going to be the big nooner. I played in 2 whiteouts, and most people are like, oh, it's the crowd. It's a huge difference. And I remember when I had Urban and Zach Smith and all those guys in 2012, we had to go out there for a whiteout, an 8:00 kick. And I told those guys, I'm like, look, this is a really crazy loud thing. And I was fully aware that they've been to LSU at night, and they've been to the Swamp, and they've been to Bama and every other place in the SEC. And I'm like, no, I'm telling you, these guys, they pump in noise on their stereos. There's 117,000 people, whatever it is. And it's just, and these guys are drinking grain alcohol from 8 a.m. until kick. And these guys do not shut up the whole game. And they didn't believe me, but we sat in that staff room the next day on Sunday morning. I was like, told you it was on there. We're like, holy shit. That was really, really, that was worse than Death Valley LSU at night. And I was like, I told you, like, I mean, I knew you guys been from the SEC, but that's a different animal at night. So thank God that is a noon game. So with that being said, I'm going to wrap this thing up. Any parting shots, Bank, and we'll get you back in a couple days. Big week for the Bucks with the Badgers. Any parting shots for the Scoop faithful?
No, not really. Looking forward to this game. I mean, this is, I like the way the schedule's set up where, if you look at Michigan's schedule, they have had 3 just so boring, awful games. This was good. You started off with Notre Dame, then you had a couple breathers. Now you're right back at the grinder again. So I really, from a fan perspective of wanting to see great football, I mean, this is a great schedule, and I think we're going to learn a lot this week, as we do every week. As you progress, you start to learn about these teams, and I think we'll learn a lot about Ohio State this week. I think in the Notre Dame game, I think Ohio State matched that physicality from Notre Dame and exceeded it. So you're gonna have to do that again this week. You're gonna have to be bad dudes out there because this running game is real. And like you said, they practice it, they work it. They're not going to give up on it. You got to force them to give up on it by getting up by 17, 20 points. And if you can't, they're just going to keep on coming. So that's what it's going to be fun. It's going to be a great atmosphere, fun game. I love the way the schedule sets up this year from a fan perspective. So much excitement. It seems like every other week you're in a big battle again. So it'll be fun. It'll be fun.
Totally agree. And I like the 2 breathers after Notre Dame's great because you get to get in the Sonny Styles and the Kai Stokes, and because you need those guys to get ready to go, man. Because you see these guys are getting dinged up, like Josh Proctor, Tanner McAllister, Julian Fleming. I mean, some of these young guys better get ready to go. They better get dressed and get stretched out because the stretch run's coming, and you're only a player or 2 away from you having a real role. Like, I mean, I think Sonny Styles is gonna keep growing into the defense, and these guys keep getting nicked up, man. You could be starting in a week or 2, which sounds crazy, but I've seen
Yeah.
crazier stuff happen. So, oh, thank you, are the man. What an episode. I'm going to lock this thing down. I appreciate Bill the Bank Greene. He's the best in the business at the recruiting gig. Nobody better than the bank. The scoop is we are growing like crazy right now. It is a huge week. We are big recruiting weekend, big game, night game. Never been a better time to be a part of BuckeyeScoop.com, the number one inside information website in the Ohio State space. And we are cranking right now. It is unbelievable. Nevada Buck, Bill Bank Greene, just an assortment. You know, the Oracle's got a huge expansion update coming this week. Really good stuff. As always, leave us a like and subscribe to the channel if you have not yet on YouTube. Those make huge differences. Comment, what do we need to do to beat the Wisconsin Badgers? And what recruit do you want us to close out the 2023 class with? So, as always, thank you so much, Scoop family. Thank you, Buckeye Nation. As always, we're going to talk to you tomorrow. Appreciate you guys. Go Bucks.